Imagine, just for a second, that your office, your school, your favorite coffee shop, your gym, and, I don't know, your bedroom, imagine they are all essentially located inside the exact same building.
Wow. Yeah, that is quite the intense image. There's literally nowhere to compartmentalize your life in that scenario.
Right. I mean, you live exactly where you work, you study exactly where you sleep, you socialize right where you stress out.
Oh yeah, just a total overlap of everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is the very unique, very concentrated reality of living in a boarding house. It's this incredible, like a pressure cooker of an
A
environment.
literal pressure cooker, yeah.
You are constantly balancing rigorous academic challenges, intense friendships, activities, and your own personal goals. And you're doing it all at the exact same time under one single roof.
Which is, exhausting just to think about.
Totally. But welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at the fascinating research of cognitive scientist Dr. Sian Beilock to figure out how people survive and actually thrive in a pressure cooker like that.
And her work is a perfect lens for this, honestly, because she fundamentally challenges our basic, deeply ingrained assumptions about stress and performance.
That's stuff we've always been taught, right?
Right, we're conditioned to think of stress as the enemy, like it's a bug in the system. But her research completely shifts the focus from trying to eliminate pressure, which is biologically impossible anyway.
Right, you can't just turn it off.
Exactly. It shifts from eliminating it to understanding how our thoughts and emotions in those pressurized moments directly dictate our success.
And I should say, the mission of this deep dive isn't just to talk about boarding school, though obviously that is the ultimate proving ground we're looking at today.
Absolutely. It's the perfect test case.
But we are going to extract Dr. Beilock's findings on managing pressure, maintaining focus, performing at your absolute best, and this is the key. Apply these lessons to anyone, including you, listening right now.
Anyone who's, trying to stay calm and confident when the stakes are incredibly high.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because since the goal isn't to magically eliminate pressure from our lives, we first need to completely redefine what pressure actually means when we feel it, bubbling up in our chest.
That is the perfect place to start. Because almost all of us carry around a massive misconception about what is actually happening in our bodies.
What do you mean, like physical misconception?
Yeah, totally. Many students, and professionals for that matter, mistakenly believe that feeling nervous before an exam or a big presentation means they're unprepared.
Oh, sure, you feel the physical stuff.
Exactly. They feel the heart racing, the sweaty palms, the shallow breath. And their brain immediately interprets that as a threat response. Like, uh-oh, I'm not ready for this. I'm going to fail.
I mean, I have absolutely been guilty of that. You feel that flutter in your stomach, and your brain instantly goes to the worst-case scenario.
We all do it.
But Dr. Beilock's research proves the exact opposite is true. Pressure is a completely natural biological response to something that simply matters to you.
It just means you care.
Right. And in the boarding life context, that physiological activation is coming from literally every angle. You've got high-stakes exams, you've got intense sports competitions.
Not to mention the social stuff.
Oh, incredibly complex social dynamics. Because you're living with your peer group 24/7. And underneath it all, there is the baseline stress of navigating life away from your parents.
Exactly. It's constant activation. It never really turns off. But the ultimate goal isn't to turn off the physiological response.
Because you can't.
Right. It is learning to categorize it correctly
No.
so you can respond in a healthy, constructive way. When your heart races, that is your sympathetic nervous system releasing adrenaline.
Pumping the blood, right?
Pumping oxygen-rich blood to your brain and muscles so you can be sharp and alert. It's not a panic attack. It's an optimization protocol.
That makes me think of an analogy. It's like treating a blinking dashboard light as a sign the car is actively exploding.
I think that's good, yeah.
Rather than just an indicator that the engine is engaged, it's running high and it's ready to do some heavy lifting. So if we reframe nervousness from I'm not ready to I care about this, how does that actually change a person's approach to a challenge, like neurologically?
What's fascinating here is that the moment you acknowledge pressure as a natural byproduct of caring, you instantly neutralize what cognitive psychologists call secondary anxiety.
Wait, secondary anxiety, like the anxiety about the anxiety.
Precisely. The stress about being stressed.
No.
When you feel nervous and think, I shouldn't be feeling this way, my heart is pounding, I must be failing, you are piling a second, highly destructive layer of panic on top of the original physiological arousal.
So you're just doubling down on the stress.
You are essentially telling your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, that there's a mortal threat in the room.
Right.
But if you say, my heart is beating fast because this history exam matters to me, and my body's giving me the energy to focus, you normalize the experience. You stop fighting your own biology.
You recognize that anxiety is often just like miscategorized physiological arousal. You just let the dashboard light blink and keep driving.
You keep your foot on the gas because you know the engine is supposed to be running hot right now.
Okay, so if the dashboard light blinking just means the engine is on and that I simply care about the outcome, why do I still end up crashing the car?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Why does caring so much cause us to choke? Because we all know that feeling of caring deeply, being highly energized, and then totally blanking.
This raises an important question about where our attention actually goes when we are under pressure. Dr. Beilock's work points out that overthinking is the main culprit that interferes with performance.
Overthinking, not just nerves.
Right. Choking isn't a lack of ability or a sudden loss of intelligence. It is a fatal misdirection of focus.
The research spells this out very clearly, actually. When students focus intensely on the fear of making mistakes, it prevents them from showing what they truly know.
It blocks their true capability,
Yeah. And in a boarding environment, this manifests in some very specific, really frustrating ways. It looks like worrying so much about the final grade that your actual concentration drops while you're reading the textbook.
Your eyes are moving, but you're not absorbing anything.
Exactly. Or it looks like feeling completely overwhelmed and paralyzed right before you step up to the podium for a presentation.
Oh, the podium freeze.
Yeah. Or, and I think this is the most tragic one, doubting your own ability even after you have spent weeks doing thorough, meticulous preparation. Beilock argues the solution is redirecting attention toward the task itself rather than the fear.
It is the fundamental difference between playing to win and playing not to lose.
Playing not to lose. I like that phrasing.
Because when you are focused on the fear, you are playing not to lose. And cognitively, that requires a massive amount of mental energy.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because this sounds a little, I don't know, overly optimistic.
Okay, hit me.
Shouldn't we be highly aware of potential mistakes so we can actively avoid them? For instance, if I'm taking a really complex calculus test, I need to be hyper aware of dropping a negative sign.
Right, the classic math error.
If I'm not thinking about that mistake, I'm going to make it. So how do you distinguish between careful, necessary preparation and self-sabotaging overthinking?
That is a crucial distinction, and it really comes down to what you are actually picturing in your mind.
Okay.
Careful preparation is entirely about the mechanics of the task. It is reviewing the formulas, checking your work step by step, focusing on the numbers right in front of you. You are in the present moment.
You're doing the math.
Right. Overthinking, on the other hand, is obsessing over the consequence of the mistake. It is sitting there staring at the math problem and thinking, if I drop a negative sign here, I'll fail this test, and if I fail this test, my GPA drops, and I won't get into the university I want.
Ah, okay. I see the difference. Preparation keeps your brain on the paper. Overthinking drags your brain into a terrifying hypothetical future.
Precisely. And here is the neurological reason why that causes you to choke. We have something called working memory.
The scratch pad thing.
Exactly. It's essentially your brain's mental scratch pad, located in the prefrontal cortex. It's where you actively hold and manipulate information to solve problems. But that scratch pad has a very strictly limited capacity.
It can only hold so much at once.
Exactly. And when you focus on hypothetical fears and doomsday scenarios, you are writing all of that anxiety onto your mental scratch pad.
Oh, wow. So you're filling it up with junk.
Yes. Your brain dedicates so much processing power to running those terrifying future simulations that it literally crowds out the information you need. You don't have enough cognitive bandwidth left to actually solve the calculus problem.
Because your brain is busy planning for your ruined future.
Your true ability is hidden behind a wall of worry.
That makes total sense, but it also sounds terrifying because it happens so incredibly fast. I mean, 1 second you're reading a question, the next second your working memory is just hijacked.
It is remarkably fast, yeah.
So knowing we need to focus on the task instead of the fear is great in theory, but how do we actually execute that when the panic sets in? Like when you're sitting in the exam hall, the clock is ticking, and your mind just goes entirely blank.
You need a circuit breaker.
We need actionable strategies to take back that cognitive bandwidth.
We do. And thankfully, Dr. Beilock's research outlines what we might call a toolkit for anxiety reduction.
A Beilock toolkit.
Right. And she emphasizes that it does not take a massive, hours-long psychological intervention to fix this. Small, deliberate mental strategies make a massive difference in those high-pressure acute moments.
Let's go through them because they are incredibly practical. First, taking slow breaths to literally calm the physical body.
Getting the heart rate down.
Right. Second, breaking large, intimidating challenges down into smaller, highly manageable steps. So instead of telling yourself, I need to write a 10-page essay that will define my final grade,
Which is overwhelming.
extremely, I just need to write one solid introductory paragraph in the next 30 minutes.
Chunking it down.
Yeah. And third, focusing strictly on your effort and your preparation rather than the final outcomes. Asking yourself, did I study hard for this? Yes. You anchor yourself to the work you've already done.
Those are the foundational tools. Taking slow breaths activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which acts as a brake pedal to that adrenaline rush we talked about earlier.
It shuts off the alarm bells.
Exactly. And chunking the challenge keeps you firmly grounded in the present reality. It gives you immediate, achievable goals that don't overwhelm your working memory.
But then there is this one crucial Beilock strategy mentioned in her research, and here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, the writing exercise.
Yes, she recommends writing down your worries right before an exam to literally clear the mind. And honestly, I have to push back hard on this one.
Let's hear it.
Okay, writing down all my darkest, worst fears right before a high-stakes test sounds like a guaranteed recipe for a total panic attack.
It does sound a bit scary.
Right. If I sit there and physically write, I am going to completely bomb this history test and look like an idiot, I am staring right at my panic. I've put my worst fear in ink right in front of my face.
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It acts like a giant blinking neon sign. How on earth does externalizing that fear help? Doesn't it just cement the doomsday scenario in your brain?
It sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? It feels like you're just feeding the monster.
Exactly.
But the cognitive mechanics behind it are actually brilliant. And it all comes back to that working memory scratch pad we were just talking
A
about.
prefrontal cortex scratch pad.
Right. When you are sitting there worrying, those unarticulated fears are bouncing around inside your prefrontal cortex. They're taking up active space in your brain.
Just floating around in there.
They're constantly running in the background, competing with the historical dates and facts you actually need to recall for the test.
Oh, I see. It's exactly like having 30 different tabs open on your web browser.
Yeah.
The computer is dedicating RAM to every single one of those background tabs, and suddenly the main window you're trying to use just freezes up entirely.
That is the perfect analogy. By engaging in expressive writing, by physically taking those fears out of your abstract thought process and forcing yourself to articulate them onto a piece of paper, you are engaging a process called affect labeling.
Affect labeling, like labeling your feelings.
Yes, when you put feelings into words, you actually shift brain activity away from the amygdala, the emotional panic center, and move it into the prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and language.
So you're forcing it out of the panic zone.
You are forcing the brain to process the fear logically. You are essentially closing all those background browser tabs.
Oh.
You're telling your brain, these fears are safely stored right here on this physical paper. We don't need to dedicate active cognitive bandwidth to holding on to them anymore.
That is entirely different from just staring at a scary sentence. You are literally clearing the cache of your working memory. You're separating the emotion from the active processing center.
You are creating psychological detachment. By externalizing the anxiety, students feel significantly more in control of their learning and performance.
They get it out of their head.
They get the anxiety out of their immediate thought process, freeing up the mental space they need to actually concentrate on the test in front of them. The fear is on the paper, so it doesn't have to be in their head.
Okay, consider me convinced. The science on that is undeniable. So we have these powerful individual tools now.
We do.
We know how to neurologically reframe pressure. We know how to protect our working memory from overthinking. And we have physical tools like parasympathetic breathing and expressive journaling to clear the cache.
Right, the personal toolkit.
But Dr. Beilock's insights make a very deliberate pivot here when applied to a place like a boarding school. Because success under pressure isn't achieved in a vacuum.
No, it really isn't.
It requires a very specific environment to truly take root and grow.
This is where we shift from individual cognitive psychology to community culture. Because success under pressure is rarely about raw, innate talent.
It's not just a genetic lottery.
No, people aren't just magically born impervious to stress. It's a learned skill.
Right. The research shows it develops through consistent preparation and repeated managed experience. You have to build the pressure muscle, so to speak.
Like that, the pressure muscle.
And in a boarding environment, confidence grows through very specific repeated actions, following structured, steady routines, actively seeking feedback and support from the teaching staff.
Learning to view mistakes as data points.
Yes, rather than fearing them as character flaws. And this is a massive one celebrating progress and effort, not just final results.
And that last point about how we celebrate is vital for the entire culture. If a boarding house or any high-stakes environment only celebrates the student who gets the perfect score,
A valedictorian.
right, they are actively reinforcing the outcome, obsessed overthinking that causes people to choke. They are breeding secondary anxiety.
Because everyone else feels like a failure.
But if the culture celebrates the student who struggled with the material, utilized the feedback, worked incredibly hard, and improved a full letter grade, they are reinforcing task-focused effort. They were rewarding the process.
Which brings me to my favorite way to look at this whole concept. Because boarders are living side by side with their peers 24/7, managing pressure shifts from being a solo, isolating sport to a team sport.
That's a great way to frame it.
I like to think of the boarding house as a resilience laboratory. You are quite literally living inside the experiment, surrounded by your fellow scientists.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes the entire dynamic of stress. Pressure inherently feels heavier when you believe you are facing it alone.
It amplifies the threat response.
It really does. But boarders have this unique, incredible opportunity to build a positive, reinforcing culture. They can encourage their peers before big events.
They can share study strategies.
Exactly, actively sharing effective study strategies instead of hoarding them out of a sense of hyper-competition.
Right, no gatekeeping.
They can recognize each other's effort and show genuine empathy and understanding when someone is visibly stressed.
Because they're all going through the exact same physiological and psychological experiences, they all know what it feels like to have those 30 browser tabs open.
Precisely. And dealing with stress is not a zero-sum game.
What do you mean by that?
One student learning to manage their pressure and succeed doesn't mean there's a limited pie of success, leaving less for someone else. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about emotional contagion.
Catching feelings, basically.
Yeah. If everyone around you is vibrating with unmanaged anxiety, you're going to catch that ambient stress. But communities that actively value support and well-being elevate everyone's performance.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
Shared strategies and mutual understanding actively reduce the collective ambient stress of the entire environment. When the environment feels safer, the individual feels bolder.
So what does this all mean? If we zoom all the way out, pulling everything together from the cognitive science of Dr. Sian Beilock and the unique resilience laboratory of boarding life,
It's a powerful combination.
the core message for you listening is incredibly empowering. Feeling nervous just means you care. It means you are alive, your biology is functioning perfectly, and you're deeply invested in what you are doing.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Exactly. Performance isn't just a static measure of raw intelligence or natural ability. It is about mindset. It is about emotional control.
Taking a slow breath to engage your parasympathetic nervous system.
Trusting the preparation you have put in and focusing all your working memory on the single step right in front of you.
And while the boarding school environment is the ultimate test case, the relevance here is absolutely universal.
It applies to everyone.
Learning how to manage pressure improves your daily concentration. It builds deep emotional resilience. It fosters independence and helps you maintain a much healthier, more sustainable relationship with both success and failure.
These are essential foundational skills that do not stop mattering at the school gates.
They extend far beyond education. They go into university life, into demanding, high-stakes careers, and into complex adult relationships, turning challenging, high-pressure moments into opportunities for cognitive growth is a lifelong pursuit.
It really is. It's about taking that intense environment, whether it's an actual boarding house where you live, work, and sleep under one roof, or just the high-pressure, constantly connected environment of your current life.
Your own personal pressure cooker.
Right. And realizing you have the physiological and psychological tools to navigate it. You don't have to be paralyzed by the blinking dashboard light.
You just have to acknowledge it.
Clear your mental cache and keep driving.
Because the pressure will always be there as long as you're pursuing things that matter. The real skill is entirely in your response.
Which leaves us with one final, perhaps slightly uncomfortable thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. We've established that feeling nervous is simply proof that you care and that you are actively stepping outside your comfort zone to grow.
Your brain and body are rising to a meaningful challenge.
So, what does it mean about your current path if you haven't felt nervous in a really long time?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Might the total absence of pressure actually be a warning sign that you're playing it a little too safe? Something to think about. Catch you next time on The Deep Dive.